The second season of Tokyo Vice drops this week, and Bahi and I realized that we watched the first season, but for some reason did not do a review.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that is. I think we may have been traveling and it may have been caught in that in between space.
I think we were just busy because it was April 22.
Wow. It was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But we really like the show,
We really like this show.
which is why we're recording this now because we figure we want to cover season one before we jump back into season two. Now, if you missed it the first time, Tokyo Vice is a HBO series that's loosely based on the life of American journalist Jake Adelstein. Now, Jake Adelstein in the 1990s was the first foreign employee of one of Tokyo's most eminent newspapers, the Yomiuri Shimbun. Before that, there was no white person ever in their newsroom. He learned the language, he did the tests, he did everything, and he got in and became a journalist.
Can I just say that's not as unbelievable as it may sound? It's not like the Boston Globe newspaper didn't have any Pollocks in it.
Right.
It's not that big a deal.
So this series is loosely based on his book, and it is a lot of things. It is a newspaper noir, it is a Yakuza thriller, it's this conspiracy story all rolled into one. And the icing on the cake is that the first episode is directed by Michael Mann.
Yes.
It's one of these things that I feel was very underhyped and underwatched when it was released.
Mm.
One of the cleverest decisions about the show is that they don't make Ansel Elgort's character, he's the lead. They don't necessarily make him super cool. And I think that really drives the story because it doesn't lose sight of the fact that he is a working journalist. He's not a suave private detective. He's not an action hero. He's an average schmo that is working a crime and investigating this series of murders in inverted commas in 1990s Tokyo.
The other thing I really liked about the show as well is that it's essentially a four setting TV show. There is the newspaper stuff, which is pretty much headed up by Ansel Elgort's Jake Edelstein. There's the police stuff. And when I say police stuff, I don't just mean Ansel Elgort's relationship with the police. There's a conspiracy within the police itself, who also, by the way, we haven't mentioned, Ken Watanabe is in this thing, who is just Ken Watanabe fantastic in everything, so it's fine.
I feel like that goes without saying because if you have a Japanese show, I think people can just safely assume that Ken Watanabe is going to be in it.
It's either him or the other guy. What's his name? The guy in Shogun and Westworld.
Hiroyuki Sanada. It is either Ken Watanabe or Hiroyuki Sanada.
Who are both fantastic, by the way. I can't decide who my favorite Japanese actor is over the two. But anyway, so there's the Ansel Elgort journalist stuff. There is the police conspiracy drama, Ken Watanabe. There is the thing about the Yakuza, who's just, I don't want to say led by, but is focused on Sato. The actor's name is Sho Kasamatsu, who's fantastic, by the way. He's just absolutely just great to look at on screen. He's got this slightly detached, deep well of emotion without ever showing it kind of thing. And then there is the Tokyo nightlife situation with Rachel Keller's Samantha Potter sort of leading up this escort situation. Just in the one show, you get four different settings almost. You get a story that jumps through all four levels without ever being too tight down in one. And I liked that. I like that you can see all of these areas of Tokyo nightlife and underbelly.
The other thing the show does, of course, is give you that fish out of water style storytelling. I love shows and movies that do that, that lost in translation approach of the foreigner in a foreign land learning the ropes, trying to come to terms with their quirks and eccentricities. And we see a lot of that, but also on a deeper level, right? Because I don't think we've been exposed to this side of Japanese culture as much.
Can I also say on that, Jake Edelstein isn't a preachy character. He isn't walking around Tokyo saying, this is not how it's done in America, this is not democracy, blah, blah. He's not pushing the American centric agenda. He's really just literally at times trying to keep his head above water in an unfamiliar Tokyo.
The only rocking of the boat that he does is actually investigating this crime. Like, he's trying to make a name for himself because obviously he's the only gaijin in this newsroom, and he writes about the death on a bridge of this man with like a sword in his stomach, and he thinks it's a murder, but he is told by his boss there are no murders in Japan. And it is this cryptic message which basically implies that no one publicly talks about organized crime in Japan. And it's unacceptable. You're asking for trouble. How dare a gaijin put it in a newspaper, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that pretty much kicks off this narrative. And that's the only kind of white person rocking of the boat that he does. And of course, it doesn't feel out of place in the story because it's a true story. It's actually what Jake Adelstein did.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's a lot of creative license that has been taken because the story is dramatized and there are all of these noir elements that makes it really, really cool. But at the same time, it is rooted in just enough truth to make it feel real.
Yeah.
And I think if you've been to Tokyo and if you've been to Japan, then you will recognize, at least on some level, those eccentricities and quirks. And you can see how it would fit within the story as well. Like their sense of saving face, secrecy, this notion of not rocking the boat, closing an eye to certain things, niceness and politeness, and how it actually shrouds and covers up how they really feel about something. Like all of that is there.
But also there's a layer of the tradition that comes with being in a Yakuza. It's not just like an American mafia story, right? There's a lot of pomp and ceremony. There's that one scene where they're clapping rhythmically in a ceremony, and it's just the most unnerving thing. You know what it is? To me, it felt almost like a religious ceremony. The way the younger Yakuza members have to help and dress the older ones. Not for any perversion other than just this is how you respect your elders. All of that is shown in this series and doubled with everything that you just talked about, the journalism side of it and the police stuff and the nightlife thing. This show is layered on a level that I don't see a lot of nowadays, right? This feels like what The Wire used to be, where it was smart people doing smart things.
We tend to get a lot more of that on HBO. Actually, nowadays on Prime Video and Apple TV Plus as well.
Yes, yeah.
It feels like they make a lot more adult television. And this
Yeah.
feels like grown up TV. The other thing that I absolutely love about Tokyo Vice, and this is something that we gripe on a lot all the fucking time, when you have the first episode directed by Michael Mann, he sets a tone and a visual look and a sense of style that is almost non-existent in the shows that get churned out day after day, week after week, month after month, because all of that looks so templated. I think that was one of the things I was most excited about when I watched Argyle, which, since we reviewed it, seems to be getting panned. We have no idea why. We had a great time in the cinema. But as I was watching Argyle, I could immediately tell this is a Matthew Vaughn movie. When I watched West Side Story, it took me about 30 seconds into the opening sequence and the way the camera moved for me to go, yep, that is a Steven Spielberg movie. And I think you will have this same reaction watching this. You will go, yes, this is a Michael Mann joint.
They kept it going throughout season 1. There's a
lookbook that they followed.
Yeah, but it's not just that. It's also just the city noir thing, which Tokyo is just ripe for.
The city itself lends itself to such a thing, but then
Absolutely.
in Michael Mann's hands,
Yep.
it really looks special.
Just the way that nightclub looks, the way it's lit.
Even the way the camera just follows Ansel Elgort throughout.
It's not completely handheld. I mean, when you watch it, and I hope you do watch it, you'll understand what I'm saying. The camera work is not smooth. It's not completely on a dolly. It's not locked out. But at the same time, it isn't so herky jerky. It feels like the camera is telling you that the camera is in control. It's not polished. It's not perfect, but it's in control. It's not in an alien territory. I don't know, man. Like, I had completely forgotten how much I love this show until I started thinking about it again for this review.
The other thing, of course, is that I feel perfectly comfortable recommending the show now after 2 years because I hadn't heard anything about a potential season two renewal. I think it just missed my news feed.
Same,
And
yeah.
season one ends on such a cliffhanger, and there are so many threads that need resolving that it would have been incredibly frustrating if there wasn't a season two. But yes, there is a season two. So now we can safely recommend that you go and catch Tokyo Vice season one. If you haven't seen it already, it is an excellent show, criminally underwatched.
Only 8 episodes, season one.
Only 8 episodes.
Yeah,
It's magnificent. It's the kind of grown up television that we don't often get. It feels like you are reading a really good thriller.
yeah.
Watch Tokyo Vice on HBO. Let us know what you think. You can reach out on all of our social media feeds, Goggler MY. You can also email us on podcast@goggler.my or send us a WhatsApp on the Goggler hotline, 012-524-5208. Once again, season 2 drops this week. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Goggler Podcast.